kuleta mabadiliko IEBC, na mbinu mpya za uchaguzi IEBC, yenye wadhifa wa mipaka IEBC, chagua Kenya unayoitaka IEBC, usirudie yale makosa IEBC.
Welcome to the show, Commissioner Muthoni, wangai.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, today we want to talk about elections and democracy.
Yes.
But just before we get into the topic of the day, we want to just answer one or two emerging issues from previous shows. We have a gentleman by the name Martin Wabogo who is asking further extensive civic education should be done to eligible voters, both the electorate and electoral officials as stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you. I think Mr. Wambogo is right. Everything we are doing, whether it's technology or other things, we will have extensive programs for that, covering all the information the voter needs to know. And this is supposed to make the process very fluid, easy to, to carry through. And we appreciate that they are already paying attention to that issue. And together with our stakeholders, we shall be carrying out programs to make sure that everybody is quite comfortable with the electronic voter registration and other voting issues by the time we come to the elections.
Ruben Chemite says, and I want to read his verbatim because
Yes.
it's got quite a bit of depth to it. He says, my concerns are about the biometric voter registration. And he says that now that a good percentage of the country enjoys wireless networks, isn't it possible for the registration clerks to transmit the captured prints back to the central processing facility instead of going through the regional office?
Certainly the future is perhaps to go online on most of these functions. However, we go step by step. The convergence of the information at the regional level has a purpose because the regional level covers the constituencies. You have the constituency as a constituency, the constituency as a county.
Yes.
You have the ward, and you'll have to collect data there. As for the mechanism of doing that, using technology is the ultimate. However, the collation of data at a regional level has a purpose because of the control of the election process. So even if we were to do it directly to the center,
yes,
there'll still be a certain level of bringing this data together at regional level, county level, and all the other constituencies. That's a ward and the constituency.
Let me take the last question just before we go into our topic of the day.
Yes.
From a gentleman called Kiplangat. He's asking whether the IEBC has begun implementing the law that bars people who are in government from using government machinery to campaign.
We are now completing the regulations which will govern the elections. We are in the process of consolidating our mandate of prosecution and of election offenses and so on, together with, of course, the other stakeholders. And by the end of May, June, there we should have all these regulations. And what people should do is keep a record of where people are breaking the law, because they are running a very big risk. Because if we find out that you have been doing this and the regulations are in place, the legal process will
yes,
take action, and obviously the candidate is running a risk of not being allowed to run.
Na mbinu mpya za uchaguzi yenye wadhifa wa mipaka.
Talk about elections and democracy today, and maybe it might be a good place to start by asking you to define democracy.
Yes, I think democracy is one of the words which sometimes has been mentioned so much that sometimes we lose the gist of it. But in this context, what we mean is what we are looking for is that democracy in the context of governance, self-governance. We come from a history where we fought for freedom. So the first stage is you have freedom. Then you decide what you want to do with that freedom. And it is not an end in itself, because you're supposed to deliver certain goods and services in order to make your people prosperous. Now, that governance, self-governance, in order for us to reach our goals, is where democracy comes in. That is, and us as an election body, our role is to ensure that you elect people who will be suitable to deliver those goods. And elections are the method by which you achieve that governance, that government. It's therefore very, very important that we take elections very seriously, and that is why at IEBC we work very, very hard to ensure that the quality of the process will deliver the kind of government that we want.
IEBC sits at a very pivotal role then for that to happen. We went out to the streets to ask members of the public the relationship between elections and democracy and how they wanted to see. And let's take two quick questions.
Kuuliza IEBC ni hatua gani imechukua kuhakikisha ya kuwa uchaguzi itafanyika kwa haki na uhuru?
Kitu naweza kupenda kuuliza watu wa uchaguzi ni je, next election tutakuwa na fujo kama ile ilikuwa ya 2007 ama namna gani? Kama itakuwa namna hiyo, haitakuwa uchaguzi mzuri.
Ningependa kuuliza IEBC kwamba watafanya nini ili kudeal na vitisho kutoka kwa wanasiasa wakati wa uchaguzi.
Well, the first question, of course, you had, what are some measures IEBC is putting in place to ensure democratic elections?
To begin with, the Constitution has a whole raft of laws which have developed from there. And for IEBC, it's very critical because we are formulating. We are now interpreting from the Constitution, developing the mechanisms by which the provisions in the Constitution will be applied to ensure that elections are free and fair.
Yes.
And all the regulations, these regulations will cover the voting process, they'll cover candidates, they'll cover parties, they'll cover the other interaction with the other bodies which are concerned with the elections. That is the ones we interact with in order to deliver the free and fair elections. And it's a very, very important time in our lives because it's the first time we are doing that after the promulgation of the Constitution.
Indeed.
So essentially, we have the templates, and we'll be rolling out this with the stakeholders, and then they can comment, and finally we have the whole set of laws and regulations to manage elections in a way that we can deliver the mandate, that is free and fair elections, and finally the kind of government we want.
If you have, say, 10, 20 litigation cases
yes.
At the end of an election,
yes.
Does it mean that you are not conducting a democratic process? Where would litigation be coming from?
Litigation can come from very many sources. Some rightfully, some maybe we can win some, others we will not win.
Indeed.
But we hope that we don't have as many as 20 litigations, because 20 is almost is slightly less than 10%.
Yeah, 10% indeed.
And that will not be a very good scorecard for our part. So
yes.
Essentially, that is 20 out of, say, for example, the National Assembly.
Yes,
but if it's 20 overall, then
yes.
that is probably not a bad performance. But essentially, we would like to reduce litigation because it will also tell us that the control process was okay, our management of the elections was okay. However, the public, the Kenyans, are free to get redress from the courts if they are not happy.
Let's quickly take the second question, and this is an interesting one because he asked, how will the Commission deal with intimidation from politicians?
First and foremost, if you look at the way the Commission has been, the commissioners have been selected, it's a very, very independent process. The independence is embedded in the law, and it is something we are practicing. And we are not the type of people to be intimidated by politicians. That is for sure. Yeah. What we would like is the politicians and us become partners, again, in developing a government or a governance system which is democratic, so that we can deliver services to Kenyans.
And everything that you are putting out to the public is independent.
It's independent, and it will be within the law, good practice, and all those elements are covered in the Constitution, and we will stand by very, very good standards in the way we do things.
You're watching Countdown with the IEBC. We take a short break and we'll be back in a little while.
Wakenya unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa. Wakenya unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa.
Welcome back to Countdown with the IEBC. Today, our guest, Commissioner Muthoni Wangai. I had asked about the relationship between elections in perspective of the Constitution.
In the Constitution, the elections are one of the reasons, one of the ways of achieving democracy. And you can see that in the section which sets up IEBC. You can see that in the laws which are followed after that, in the Elections Act, in the Political Parties Act. And the whole idea is that when you look at all the stakeholders, we all deliver a very prosperous nation through democracy. So each of us has got a responsibility set by the law in order to be able to deliver the kind of governance we want. In that respect, as far as elections are concerned, the stakeholders like political parties will be consulted throughout. We should be looking for goodwill both ways from the IEBC and the public so that we deliver that. We'll be looking at things like candidates. The candidates should be ready to look at the constitutional provisions and the legal provisions and follow the law. And in that case, you'll be looking at the laws, for example, which govern the issue of their funding, that is how much money they can spend in campaigns and whether they should use that money to bribe voters. That should not be the case. So everyone has a role in order for us to be able to deliver the kind of government we want, and finally democracy, and finally the prosperity we are looking for.
What is your expectation from, say, the media
Yes,
or say the judiciary?
Yes. Kenya, we are coming from a past where not only the media, but the media is one of them, people who didn't play their part very well in the past elections, especially the 2007. And instead of just of informing people and promoting candidates and promoting agendas and so on, a lot of us were sucked into partisanship, and finally we got violence from the whole event. The media knows its work very well. We have one of the best, most vibrant media industries in Africa, and we cannot go into limiting what the media will say because we don't want to go into the class of the people who control media. In that case, then, media must control itself and agree on the values they will use in promoting agendas and refusing to be sucked into partisanship, and give us a coverage which is mature and which will allow the discourse, the debates on issues rather than on personalities, and make elections the avenue for people exchanging ideas, learning, and finally electing the kind of government they want.
I want you to comment about the judiciary, because it's very pivotal to making you have a successful implementation of this process.
Just like IEBC, the independence of the judiciary is supposed to deliver a good environment for those aggrieved if they to go to court and get the right redress for their problems. And one of the things which has been a problem in the judiciary, of course, has been the speed at which cases are dispensed with. And we hope, because there is a lot of flurry of activity, this can be improved. And therefore, people will have the confidence that if they go to court, they can get the redress.
Are there different levels of democracy? And where are we in your estimate?
Now we have a position, that opportunity this year by making sure we can elect a government and not fight. We reserve that energy to demanding services from that government.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, very well put. And I guess what you talk about is nationalism.
Nationalism, yes. Thank you.
As an influencer to democracy.
Yes. And if you want me to comment on that, because when we got the Constitution, we had the blueprint, but we have to move that a bit further, because we were at a time when you can call it a mini conflict. So we needed to bring people together. Also, there is the issue of civic education. Mm-hmm. People need to know intimately what the Constitution offers, the opportunities, the responsibilities. And then we need to develop a sense of nationalism. So essentially, we want to reach a level where we have such nationalism that when a problem, for example, arises, one of us stands up and says, I can lead these people to solve our problems. And when we go out even to the international community and locally, we are happy people. Not just always, if you look at a lot of times, leaders tend to spend so much time castigating each other rather than dealing with issues.
The issues.
So that is where we want to be. Kenyans, and Kenya has already got a very high brand, especially in the region, in Africa. So we should make sure that we deliver on that brand.
Wow, there you have it. The role of democracy and elections. Commissioner Muthoni Wangai putting it very well, and thank you very much, Commissioner, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We hope we can have you again.
Thank you.
To give us a bit deeper insights into some of these things. As usual, we want to continue to engage with you. At the bottom of your screen, you can see our contacts are scrolling there, our Facebook, our Twitter, and our email address. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear your questions on this critical process in the history of our country at this time. And thank you for watching, and have yourself a very good viewing. And until next time, I'm your host, Effie Hunja.
Chagua Kenya unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa.